Hi, and welcome to our demo of Validate on Demand, which is the free limited trial version of Validate.Trade from RiskFocus. When you first come to the landing page of Validate on Demand, which is Ondemand.Validate.Trade, you'll be given the opportunity to log in using your LinkedIn profile if you're a first-time user. Of course, you need to read the terms and conditions, which I'm going to do rather quickly. And I'm going to agree to the terms because I trust it. And then I'm going to log in using my LinkedIn ID. Please note that the only thing that we know about you at this point is your name and your email address for your LinkedIn ID. We don't collect any other information from LinkedIn, such as your posts, your likes, your contacts, and all that stuff. So the best way to show off the functionality is to actually start loading in some messages. Please note that Validate.Trade as an enterprise piece of software can handle up to millions of messages per day. In order for you to evaluate our software, we cut you off at 100 file messages, and by file messages, each file contains one CSV or FpML message when you're using the evaluation version of our software. I'm going to load a file right now. We also load pre-canned samples. So in addition to being able to select files off your desktop, which I'll show you an example of in a second, you can just go to some of our pre-canned demos. So I'm going to load a valid interest rate snapshot message in order to show off some of the features. So the green status bar that just went away, there's always going to be a status bar that you can launch from the upper right-hand corner of the screen. In this case, it shows you that 497 out of the more than 7,000 rules we have in our database were applied to this CSV message. All of them passed because this is a clean message. This gives you the ability to take a look, if you take a look at the Message tab, at the message itself in a very easy-to-read format. As you probably know, CSV messages are a little bit hard to read because it's just values separated by a comma. This gives you the ability to take a look at it by position in the file, the name of the field, and the value in that field. The validator results shows you all of the rules that were run against the message. And one of the things that is beneficial, especially to users who want an audit trail of all the rules that were applied against all of the messages that they sent to the Global Trade Repository, is now you have a control framework because all of these validation rules can be saved in a log file and archived and then searched later. So now you have an audit trail of the controls that were put in place to ensure the cleanliness of the messages and the quality of the messages that you're sending to the GTR. The emulator results is Validate.Trade displaying the expected response from the Global Trade Repository. So we emulate the behavior of the Global Trade Repository. If you pass in a CSV file, you will get a CSV message back. In this case, you're looking at an ACK because it says success. So that's a simple case. Now let me show you a slightly more complex case. I'm going to load an XML FpML file from my desktop, which I happen to know is an equity derivative found for the EU data center. So when you're loading a file, you need to specify the asset class. So I'll specify equity, I'll specify the data center, and I'll upload the file. And we'll take a look to see, ooh, there are problems. So the status bar will disappear after a couple of seconds. I'll pull it out again. So out of the 7,000 or more rules in our database, we can see that 306 distinct rules were applied because there were repeating fields in XML files. There were 342 passes and 1 failure. So let's take a look at that failure. This failure says that there's an invalid value in one of the fields. So the field allocation indicator has an invalid value of post allocation, where post is capitalized, allocation is capitalized, but there's a hyphen between the two words. So normally you need to start researching, going back to your specification to figure out, well, what are the valid values to put in this field? And yet here, If it's an enumerated rule, you can click on the hyperlink in the error, and now we present to you the valid values. Now, in the case of allocation indicator, there are only 2 valid values, post-allocation, both words capitalized, no hyphen, and pre-allocation. Again, you can see all the rules that passed as well. Let's take a look at the message. One of the features of Validate.Trade, and I'll make sure that I show you this slowly, so you can click on the message tab. Now you're looking at the FpML that you submitted. You can also take a look at a CSV view of that message. So this is one of the most popular features of Validate.Trade, the fact that you can actually look at an FpML message as though it's a CSV. And we show you the position, the field, and the value as though it was a CSV message. And then we show the XPath that we used in order to extract that information from the FpML message. Let's take a look at the emulator results. Again, you click on the emulator results tab, and it says that this is an exception, non-public execution report exception, which is a NAC. And then if you actually take a look at the message, you should take a look at the actual contents of the message. So I'll go back to the CSV view, and I'll look for post allocation, and here it is. So it's in the 94th position if this were a CSV file. Remember, we started off with an FpML file, and now we're looking at positionally as though it's a CSV, because this is actually the way that it's looked at inside the GTR itself. We can see that that was the invalid value. One of the things that this tool also lets you do, again, business analysts and testers who can use this tool in order to make sure that for new releases of their trade reporting platform, or for problematic messages where you're getting a NAC back, or if you're developing new features and you want to see whether or not you're producing the right messages, you can load the files into a tool like this. And during the free evaluation, you can actually get a chance to load some test messages. What you can also do by typing Control F inside the message is look for the offending string. Here it is. What I'm going to do is get rid of that hyphen, and then you can hit the validate button and revalidate it, and sure enough, now it was clean. The other feature that I'd like to show you is the fact that we have settings that let you turn features on and off. And also, I'd just like to point out that the menu gives you the ability to contact us. So the easiest way to contact us is to send an email to support@validate.trade in order to give us feedback on your experience using the software during the evaluation, or if you'd like to learn more about how to actually license the software, so that way you're not limited to 100 files per day. The settings menu gives you, like I said, the ability to turn features on and off. ISDA is a feature that we have turned on by default that will actually apply ISDA FpML validations to every FpML message. The demo feature right now is showing off our ability to write a custom rule, which in this case checks for the timeliness of messages. So if you actually have a real-time message, we can check whether or not the reporting timestamp is less than or equal to 15 minutes after the execution timestamp in a message. This is an example of a custom rule. You can turn that feature off. People who license the software learn from us actually how to write customized rules, which can also access order state, etc. Right now, it's that demo feature is turned on. You can turn that off by clicking the off button. And reference data rules, which again are turned on by default right now. What I'm going to do in order to demonstrate a reference data rule is actually load a file that has an invalid LEI. So we've actually downloaded the Glyph file from the Glyph service, so we can check whether or not fields like trade party 1 value has a valid LEI. If you click on the hyperlink, you can see the actual legal entity identifier, and it couldn't be looked up. I happen to know that if you put a 90 at the end of this, I'm going to hit return, it's going to look it up, and sure enough, this LEI is identified as being the correct LEI for Sparabanken Narvik. And so this is an example of a reference data check. Thank you so much for watching this demo. Hopefully it's been instructive. If you have any further questions, please send an email to support@Validate.Trade. And we hope you enjoy your experience using Validate on Demand.